Hey y'all, I am so happy to have you guys back for another paint night with me. Tonight we are going to be working on this barn scene with a sunset. And the cool thing about this painting is you can really paint it however you want. You can move the windmill around or the trees, add more trees. You can change up your barn shape however you want to. Same with your sunset. You can really make your sunset whatever you want it to be, whatever color scheme you want it to be. If you want more turquoises, really whatever you want to do. So let's see here. This is going to be my palette tonight. Okay, so if you got a kit from me, you should have all of these colors. And if you have an ultimate kit at home or your own supplies, you're going to be needing a black and a white, and then your primaries, so blue, yellow, and red. Okay, I'll let you guys get that set up. Meanwhile, you can get your brushes going as well. So tonight we're going to be using 4 different brushes. Well, actually, we may not use all of them. It's kind of going to just depend on the mood that we get into. We'll see. I might do a lot of our detail work with just the detail brush, but you have the option of a number 3 round as well. You have a number 4 flat, and then you have your background brush. Okay, so we're going to obviously do our background with our background brush, most of the sunset work, and then everything else we'll be able to get the shapes that we need from these brushes here. Okay, so when I set up my space, I put my canvas in front of me here in the direction that I want to paint it. I'm not going to put it this way because I might start painting on it, and this is portrait position. We want to be in landscape. And then next to me, I have my paints, and I'm right-handed, so I put everything out to the right of me. I have a cup of water here, and I have my paper towel, and then I have all my brushes right here on my paper towel. Okay, so I can do everything I need to right here. Okay? All right, cool. So the cool thing about tonight is this is just a recording, so you can pause me whenever you want. I'm just going to paint straight through this painting tonight, and whenever you're needing a little bit more time, you can just hit pause and I will stop talking, and you can have some peace and you can do what you need to do, and then just hit play again and I will keep telling you what to do. So it's up to you how quickly you want to get through this tonight. Maybe you really want to take your time. Maybe you don't have much time. So whatever the case is, it'll work however you want it to work. So the first thing that we're going to do, well, most of you have painted with me before, but let me just tell you real quick about this paint if you haven't painted with me before. Tonight we are using acrylic paint, and this paint doesn't well, during this class, I don't like to mix water with this paint. This paint tends to be a little bit transparent when you apply it, and so we put thin layers on, and so the layers can kind of dry in between. And if you start mixing water with it, it makes it even more transparent, and it takes even longer to dry. So we don't want either of those things, right? This should take you, my guess is going to be 1.5 hours to 2 hours or so, okay? But I know the tendency can be that you would just take your brush, dunk it in your water, swirl it around, and then go right into your paint, but try to avoid doing that. Only use your water when you need to wash out your brush, okay? Okay, well, let me get situated here and get my painting set up, and we will get started. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to work on our background. Okay, so if you don't have this pulled up right now, you might want to pull it up on your phone, or if you have an extra iPad or a computer, you can go to the Humble Life page and you can scroll down to this post. You might want to have this in front of you just for reference, because I don't show it while I'm teaching. I'll show it every once in a while, but I don't have it up constantly. And it's nice just to have a little reference every once in a while. So, okay. So the first thing we're going to do is work on our background. And so you could work on backgrounds like this for forever. Okay, so at some point when you see something that you like, you're going to have to stop. You could just work this back and forth, up and down, around and around, adding colors, not adding colors, whatever it is, until you're blue in the face. So one of 2 things is going to happen. You're going to reach the point where you just love it and you don't want to change a thing, or you're going to make mud and it's just going to be muddy. So you gotta kind of work with it a little bit in that way. Okay, So I am going to jump right in, and I'm gonna just grab a little bit of white on my brush and a little bit of red, okay? I'm gonna start down here at what we call the horizon line. The horizon line is where the ground meets the sky, okay? So wherever that is. So I'm gonna just start kind of painting right in here, okay? I'm gonna say my horizon line is about 2 inches up from the bottom of the canvas, give or take, okay? And I'm gonna start brushing in these really nice, rich pinks. Okay, I've gone up, and you see what I'm doing with my brush here. Let me get you a little bit closer. I am just kind of brushing or kind of scratching almost my brush across the surface of the canvas. Okay, kind of brushing it on like so. I'm gonna grab a little bit of yellow on my brush now. So I have a little white and red left over, and now I have a little bit of yellow, and I'm gonna brush that yellow right in here, and that is gonna create a really warm, warm pink. Really pretty, okay? That kind of glowing feeling. I'm gonna grab some white. Okay, and I'm gonna kind of start to blend it in. Now is when I'm gonna start paying attention to how much pressure I am applying to my paintbrush. So if I apply heavy amounts of pressure, I'm gonna get really thick, bold marks that are gonna smooth everything out and blend everything in. But if I apply really light marks, like this, I'm gonna get a lot of brush stroke marks, okay? So you can treat your background either way you want. Maybe you really like having those brushstroke moments in there. It's kind of cloud-like, okay? Or maybe you like everything super blended in, okay? Whichever way you wanna go with this, you can go. All right, now you're gonna want to paint your edges as you go, okay? That is something I am not doing because I'm holding my canvas out here right now, and I'm not gonna paint where I'm gonna be putting my hand, but it's good craftsmanship to go ahead and paint your edges all the way up, okay? That way, when you're done with your painting, you can just hang it up on the wall and call it a day. You don't have to go get it framed or anything like that, okay? It's just nice and done for you. So anyway, I'm gonna kind of just keep going with this. I'm gonna now kind of go into maybe just some softer yellows. So I grabbed some yellow and white on my brush. I like to do a lot of blending right here on the canvas. Okay, I started up here pushing really hard, and then as I kind of get into this pink, I press lighter and lighter, and I'm kind of just going up and down, okay? One thing I want you to be aware of, besides the amount of pressure you are applying to your canvas, is how you are painting, okay? You don't want to be painting, let me get a little bit of a darker color here. You don't want to be painting in a bow, like a rainbow shape, okay, like this. We have the tendency to do that when we go really fast. We kind of just, whew, right? We don't want to do that. We want to keep our brush strokes straight across. Nice and straight across. Okay? When you look out into the sky, unless you're actually looking at a rainbow, right? You don't see a bow, okay? You see a nice, even sky, a gradient, unless it's like super cloudy. Then you have all those different shapes and stuff, which is super cool. So I'm jumping back into a little bit of yellow just to finish up down on this side here. Okay, but I have not washed my brush yet. And because of that, you're gonna start to see a little bit of blues down in here, and I might travel upward and bring a little bit of pink up there. Okay. Like I said, if you start bringing your blue down a lot and your red up and you're mixing your yellows and all this, you're going to start getting grays. You're going to start getting kind of muddy, okay? So you want to be really careful not to do that, okay? So I'm going to grab, let's see, just a little bit of red and white. Since I have blue up here, I know that red and blue make purple. And so I'm going to start getting in some purple tones up here. Okay. Don't forget your edges and your top edge as well. Okay, really bringing in those blues and those purples. Okay. I just grabbed white when I went back this time. Just gonna smear that white in. Okay, be kind of messy with it. Even things out. Grab a little blue. So you can be super vibrant like this and this, or you can really tone everything down just by adding more white. Okay? However you want your sky to be, whatever part of the day it is. Okay, so my whole sky is covered at this point, okay? I've got some purples, blues, yellows, and then down in here into the pinks. I'm gonna wipe off some of this paint off of my paintbrush. So I am washing my brush right now, okay? And I'm gonna be very careful that when I do take my brush out of the water, I'm gonna take my paper towel, I'm gonna sandwich the bristles in between and kind of pull. That gets all the water out, and especially off of this metal part right here. You don't want any water droplets just kind of coming right down onto your canvas. All right. All right, so now I'm gonna kind of play with this a little bit more. Okay, I'm gonna get like a little bit of red and a little bit of yellow on my palette here, a little bit of white, and I'm gonna kind of come back down in here. Okay, I'm gonna tone this down a little bit. Okay, I think we're back on now. Okay, we kind of cut out there for a second, so. All right, anyway, let's see if we can just keep going here. Okay, so I grabbed a little bit of white, and I'm gonna take this white. I'm really gonna push it down into the bottom part. It's okay if you go past this line that you've made for yourself down here. Not a big deal. Okay, I just wanted to tone that down just a little bit. You don't have to if you don't want to. Okay, I'm gonna start carrying up this pink up into here a little bit. Now I'm doing something called dry brushing, and I'm taking up my brush, which hardly has any paint on it and no water, and I'm scraping it against the surface here to kind of get that sort of cloudy texture, okay? Take a little bit of white, bring in a little bit of white here. Now you can also flip your brush, okay? I'm gonna use the thin side to kind of get these thinner marks, and then I can flip it to the thicker side to get my wider brush strokes. So play with that a little bit too. Okay, add in a little bit of white here and there on your thin side. And then switch to your wide side. You can kind of just go back and forth. Adding a little bit more warmth down here. I really like the way the yellow makes this pink glow. I think it's really pretty. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna add just a little more blue here. So remember what I said before is you can really work on this forever. It will change and evolve more and more the more you work on it. So if you see something that you like, I do recommend you stop, because sometimes it's hard to get back what you like when you have so many layers, okay? Okay, so kind of take some space from it. I think I want to add in just a little bit more purple up at the top here, maybe right over here. So see how dark that is? So I'm just gonna take some white. I'll dry brush, kind of spread it out. Get really far up in that corner here. Okay. Okay, I think I'm liking it. Now I do want an area in here where I'm gonna have a sun kind of peeking through, you know, like when you look up at the sun at like through the clouds. When you're looking through the clouds, you can kind of see the perfect sphere and it's kind of white looking. You know what I'm talking about? I think that's kind of what I was trying to go for here. You kind of have that white, almost setting sun. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drop this brush in my water, and I'm gonna pick up, you can pick up your detail brush or your size 3. And I'm gonna mix, I'll show you, I'm gonna mix just a little bit of white and yellow together. So you can see my palette is getting kind of crazy. Look at my white. So I'm gonna take a little bit of yellow here, a little bit of white, and I want something super pale. Okay. Let's see if that works. I'm gonna decide where I want my sun to be. Right in this area I think is nice, kind of lower to the ground, closer to the ground. And I'm just gonna draw myself a circle. Now my paint underneath is still wet, so I'm painting wet paint on wet paint, so it might be hard to see. I'll get closer here and I'll move my hand in just a second so you can see. But I'm painting just a circle, small little circle. And it's kind of turning a pinkish color, but I like it. Okay, you see that? So I'll show you the difference in my paintings tonight. So far, what I've got with my colors and my sun. Okay. So we're gonna let this part dry for just a few minutes. Okay, take like a look back at it and make sure that you have everything where you want it to be, all your colors. But if you do like everything where it is, resist the urge to touch it, okay? Because we want it to get dry here. To be honest, mine is actually pretty dry. You can run your hand across it nice and lightly. Okay, like my bottom part here is dry. Up here might be a little bit wet, but this is the part that we really want nice and dry. Ignore my edges, but your edges should be totally painted, okay? To give a nice polished look. Okay, so I'm going to switch down to my size 4 brush here. Okay, it's called a flat because it's like a rectangle shape and it goes straight across the top like that. Can you see that? Okay. And I'm gonna jump right into my black. Okay, so I'm gonna show you the painting here one more time so you can kind of get a good look at it. And remember, you can make this landscape anything you want it to be, okay? Any barn shape you want, any kind of trees, you can do the windmill, you don't have to do the windmill, whatever you wanna do, okay? All right, so I'm gonna jump right into the black, okay? And I'm gonna, you know what, actually to make things easier, I'm gonna take my background brush and get it nice and cleaned out because this is a large space. And I'm gonna paint the bottom section of my canvas black with this large brush. Okay, so backtrack a little bit here. Large brush, bottom part all black. Yeah, it's gonna go a lot faster when you use a larger brush. Don't forget about your edges, and especially your bottom edge. Okay, now when I start getting close to this pink, I'm gonna take my brush and I'm just gonna start kind of gently painting up over it so I don't see any more white, okay? Just get to the point where you're not seeing any more white. And it does not have to be a perfectly straight line because landscapes are not perfectly straight across. They have bumps from grass or dirt or rocks or whatever, okay? You just want to get to the point where you don't see any white. All you see is that nice rim of pink or peach or whatever color it is that you have there. Okay. Now I'm taking my brush and I'm lightly pulling it across the surface of the canvas because I'm getting any excess paint up, kind of pulling it off like that. Okay. So I'm left with something just like that. Okay, now I'm gonna grab my size 4, okay? So anytime you're not using a brush that you've been using, just go ahead and put it in your water, let it soak in the water, and that way paint won't dry up on it, and it can stay nice and healthy, okay? All right, so the first thing we're gonna do is put in our barn. So decide where on your canvas you want your barn to be. Let's see, I'm gonna do mine the same as the painting before. I'm just gonna kind of start. I know it kind of takes up the majority of the middle of my canvas, but I don't want it right in the middle, okay? So I'm gonna start by just drawing myself a nice line, about 1.5 inches or so, okay? Then I'm gonna roughly kind of come up the side here like so, kind of at a slant, okay? Now I'm going to draw another line right here. Okay, that's going to show me the rest of my barn is going to go over here, but I just needed to know this space first. This line that's jetting out, it doesn't matter. Okay. Okay. See how I can hold this. So the roof angle is kind of funky here. Okay, so follow me as I do this. I'm going to angle upward. Okay, but not too far, because then once I get to this point, I'm going to angle even further. Okay, so you see that I have an angle up, 2 angles there. I knew I was going to put my hand in the paint. Go off. Okay, then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Come down, come down. Once I get down, I'm going to go down. Okay, there's a lot of downs, down, down, and down. So you have something like this. Okay, something like this. Once I have the basic shape for my barn, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to carve out the doorway. Okay. And then up here, I'm going to carve out, I know you can't see because my hand is here, but I'm carving out one other little window in the roof. Okay. So now I know everything else is going to be black. So I'm just going to set this down for a minute because it's going to be easier for me to paint. And I'll even turn it upside down so that you can see better. Okay, so I'm just going to be taking my size 4. I'm just going to be gently painting this shape in. Okay, now this part, you can really take your time and see how I'm taking my brush and I'm just going to gently, slowly, using the side of my brush, really crisp up that line. Okay, I want all my lines to be really nice and crisp. Okay. And I'm painting in one direction. I'm not painting crazy and all over the place. I'm painting like as if I were painting like wooden slats on a barn. Okay, this is the way the barn would be built, right? By placing down the wood. It's just a good rule of thumb when you're painting anything, especially like anatomy. You always want to paint with the muscle structure. Okay. All right. So I've got this bottom part painted. I'm smoothing out any bumps I see. Okay, now I'm going to come up here. Now I'm really going to focus on the shape of my roof here in a moment. I'm going to go ahead and paint around this window and crisp it up, make sure it looks like what I want it to look like. Paint in the rest of my slats here. Okay, so my roof is not as defined as I want it to be. Okay, this is just the basic structure. Okay, so what I'm going to do is that same thing. I'm going to go along the side, if you can see this. Use the side of my brush. Give a nice edge. And then meet that point. Angle down. Okay, so I have a nice point, a defined point. Okay, get those gunks away. And then I do have a little lip out here, so I'm gonna take my brush and just pull that way. Okay, and while I'm over here, I'm gonna smooth out the side of my barn. Okay, there we go. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side now. Except it's trickier because I'm right-handed and I gotta use it on my left side. So let's see here. Same idea. I'm gonna come down, a nice point. Meet the point and bring it down. There we go. Nice angle there. Okay. All right. I'm also going to smooth out my edge right here. Come across, nice and straight. And then there's a little lip, a little hang off here. Okay. Now, if you're having a hard time getting these shapes with this brush, feel free to jump down to your size 3 brush that we used to paint our sun. Okay. That is perfectly fine, especially when you're doing like these little edges right here. Things like this, you can always use your size 3 for. Okay, I'm just gonna come in here. I see some areas that could be a little bit blacker. I can see my sunset poking through. Just gonna get those. Smooth out any gunks that I see. Bam, and you have just painted a barn. Now we're gonna add a little detail here to the top. Okay, so I'm gonna come up here to the very top, and I am gonna jump down to my 3 real quick. This will be easier, get all the water off. Okay, so I have my size 3 round, and I'm just gonna come up here, and I'm gonna draw a little rectangle. Okay, like so. And then I'm gonna give it a hat. I'm gonna draw a line straight across, and then a triangle. There you go. I'm gonna even that out real quick. But you get the idea. And you could put anything up here. You could do a weather vane. Okay, whatever you feel like. All right, I'm gonna switch over back this way now. All right, so it was kind of cool that I stuck my arm in my paint and I got this little texture kind of going on over here because we're gonna kind of work on that part pretty soon. So it's okay if this area starts getting kind of jumbled up because if you wanna see in our final painting, we have a lot of that sort of brush kind of texture down here, some grassy areas or some bushes or something like that, okay? All right, let's go ahead and place in our windmill, okay? I'm gonna put mine right in over here. Okay, so let me angle this way. I think might be better for you to see my hand. You can see how we do here. All right, so the first thing I'm gonna do is decide where in the sky it's going to be, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna place a dot right up here. And I'm gonna turn that dot now into a little circle. Okay, I'm using my size 3 brush. Okay, now if you are heavy-handed, I recommend you switch down to your detail brush, okay? But I'm gonna use my size 3. I like it. It's a nice size for what I wanna do. All right, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 8 blades on my windmill, okay? So I'm gonna draw my first one, just kind of angle my brush outward. Okay, draw my first line. I'm gonna go around and I'm gonna do 8 of these. You can, if you're a very symmetrical person, you can go straight across. Okay, you have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then just kind of look at it. You want all of these to be about the same length, and mine are not. So I'm going to go around and I'm going to make each of them roughly the same length, give or take. Show yourself some grace, okay? That's a little better. Okay, so once I have these shapes, I'm going to pick one and I'm going to put a point on it. Okay, kind of like an arrow. And then I'm going to, from the edge of my arrow, I'm going to angle downward towards my circle. And then fill that shape in. And that's my first blade. Okay, so I'm going to travel around my canvas now. I'm going to turn mine since I'm holding my canvas up to show you. I'm going to do the same thing. I start at that very point that I've made. I arrow, and then I angle towards the circle. Okay. Fill it in. Angle. Pull it down. Like I said before, if you are heavy-handed, you might want to switch down to your detail brush. You might have a little more control. Okay. Arrow, pull inward. Fill it in. Okay, that one's kind of wonky. There we go. Yeah, still kind of wonky. Hang on. There we go, a little better. Okay. Arrow, pull in. In. Got my 2 more to go. Okay. Last one. Okay. Got them all filled in. Kind of gonna take a little step back and make sure I like them. Okay, make sure they work. Kind of smooth out my sides a little bit. Okay, now you can go back and you can make your circle in the middle a little bit more pronounced, a little bit more there if you want to. Okay. All right, now this next part, I'm going to set my canvas down so that I can do this the right way. I'm going to grab my detail brush if you don't already have that in your hand. Okay, I'm going to grab a little bit of black paint on my brush. I don't want gobs of paint. So let me show you. I'm going to get the paint on my brush, but see how it's kind of gobby? Can you see me over here? Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll it on my canvas, or I'm sorry, on my palette. I'm going to roll it so that now I just have this little nice fine line, okay? Okay. Let's see here. I think I'm gonna need to set it down. Okay, bear with me here, guys. So I'm gonna be drawing the legs of the windmill. Okay, so there's 4 of them. Okay, but I'm gonna do it sitting down so that I can get you nice even lines. I don't think I can draw them like this out to the side. Okay, so you're gonna just wanna decide, okay, you're gonna start with a V. So you wanna decide how wide you want your legs to be. There is not a wrong way to do this. And I'm going to draw my first one, starting from the center, my circle here, and I'm gonna pull all the way down. Okay? I have one nice line. It's an uneven line, but that doesn't matter. From the same point up in my circle, I'm gonna angle down again. Okay, so I've got 2 lines here. Yep, and they're pretty in the middle. Okay, now I've got those 2, so I'm gonna go back with my detail brush. I'm gonna even them out. I'm just gonna make them really nice and sharp. Not too thick, but I want them to be pretty even. Okay, there's one. Okay, there's 2. All right, now I've got 2 more lines inside of these lines, okay? One I'm gonna put not directly down the middle, but closer to the middle. There, like so. The other one right next to it. Okay, I didn't really mean to make them evenly spaced apart. If you look at this one, they're not so evenly spaced apart, so don't feel like you have to. Okay. Okay. So now I'm going to make the bars that connect all of these lines. I'm just making that guy a little bit thicker. Okay. So I'm going to just start. I'm going to hold this up now. So I've got those lines. I'm going to start, I don't know, not right at the very bottom, but I'm going to pick a spot maybe an inch up or so and pull it down to that first bar. And then I'm going to go all the way up, down, all the way up, down, all the way up, okay? And as I get up farther, I'm going to get a little bit closer together. Okay, until they disappear. Okay, there you go. A barn and a windmill. All right, so let's add in some trees. I'm going to continue using my detail brush now, okay? I'm going to start on this side. I'm going to work my way over. Okay, so this first tree I'll show you, he's got a lot of leaves on him. The other ones are very bare, okay? So I'll show you how to do this kind of tree. And if you like this guy, you can put them everywhere, wherever you want on your painting. You don't have to do the bare trees. It's whatever kind of look you want to go for. Okay, so I'm going to first start with deciding where I want this tree. I don't have a lot of room over here, so I'm just going to put him right in the middle here. And I'm going to make him as tall as maybe somewhere in between these 2 first poles that I did. Okay, so I'm just going to draw a line going down. Okay, and then I'm going to kind of build out the bottom of my line here a little bit. And I want it to be a little bit kind of wonkier, right? Because it's a tree. It's not a pole or anything man-made. Okay, so kind of a wonkier line. And I'm gonna bring out my branches. Okay, there's my first branch, second branch. I'm gonna maybe draw one down the middle here with an arm, and then an arm. Okay, maybe a couple here. I'm not really thinking, just kind of putting in places. Okay, something kind of like that. And then I'm going to get the paint on the tip of my paintbrush, and I'm just going to gently press to make a dot or like a little leaf print. Okay, now what makes this tree successful is that you can still see the sunset colors coming through behind all of the leaves. It's not a super dense tree. Okay, so I'm going to put my leaves in, but I'm going to be careful to leave space so that I can see the sunset setting through the tree. Okay, so I'm going to keep going on this guy. I'm also kind of turning my brush. I don't want all of my leaves to look the exact same. Okay, so I don't want to keep stamping the same print over and over. I'm also changing up my pressure a little bit. I have some bigger leaves and some smaller. Okay, just gonna fill out this shape. They don't all have to be attached to a branch. In fact, you cannot even see the branches anymore. Okay. I think I'm going to add just one more little branch down here. Here. Just make it a little bit longer. Okay. There you have it. See how you can see the colors through all of the leaves? It's not so dense where it's just a big black blob, right? You can see, okay? I think that's important. All right, so now we're gonna move on to our more bare trees, okay? So here's that first one where you can see the sunset colors. Now we're gonna move on to these guys. And then our third tree over here is the same recipe, okay? All right, so same idea. I've got my detail brush, a little bit of black paint, and I know I'm gonna have two trees and I want them to be each a different size. Okay, so I'm gonna do my smaller one first, and I'm just gonna go ahead and just draw a line, kind of coming straight down there. Okay, and now this tree depends on its branches. Okay, so every branch you draw needs to be purposeful. Now I want to make my tree slightly smaller than this one. So having that in mind, I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna draw my tallest branch coming from the middle right there. Okay, so I know I don't wanna go any taller than that guy. Okay, I'm gonna give him a little Y there, okay? I'm gonna come down here and kind of give out my wider branches. I'm using very little pressure here. I don't want very thick branches. Now, as I'm drawing them, I'm kind of waving my hand a little bit so that I don't have perfectly straight lines. Do you see that? See the wave in my line? You want to have a little bit of texture because you're drawing silhouettes, so they're just black. You have to give a lot of information in a simple black line, okay? So I'm just gonna kind of start adding in limbs. Try not to think about it, where the perfect spot is. Just kind of trust your hand, trust your brain, and make quick decisions. Okay, you'll get better at it the more you practice that. And you want every branch to look a little bit different than the one you just painted. So make sure every branch looks a little bit different and just keep kind of growing, keep kind of changing things up until it looks the way you want it to look. Okay, I think that guy's kind of okay. I think I'm gonna draw one more branch out to the side here. Okay. All right, so my next tree is gonna be a little bit taller. So I'm gonna draw a line taller, but close. Okay, they're close. Their branches are gonna overlap for sure. Kind of come out to the side there. Okay, not really thinking. Starting to add in these branches. Every tree is different, every branch is different. Okay, I'm painting right on top of my other tree, right next to it. Okay, now I want to make the trunk of my tree a little bit thicker. A little wave. Maybe it gets a little bit thicker as it gets down into the ground. Okay. Get a little space from it. Make sure you like it. I think I'm going to add one more. There we go. Okay. One more tree. Now this tree in the final painting, I've got more room over here. I've got about 2 inches over here, whereas in my painting right now I have about 1 inch. So I am still going to make this the biggest tree. You know, it's as tall as my barn, as this like line in my barn right here, the top of the window. All right, and I love that. So I'm gonna still do that. However, my tree might look a little bit different because my space over here is a lot smaller, but we'll see what happens, okay? All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna draw my line. Okay, bring you in a little closer here. Oops, wait a second. I messed up my setup. Okay, that's better. All right, so I drew my line. I'm gonna kind of even it out a little bit down here. I'm painting right over those smudgy marks that I did earlier. I'm not too concerned with them. All right, I'm gonna start in on some of my branches. Some of my branches might have to wrap around the side of my canvas. Which, had I painted my edges, would have worked out great, but I didn't. So you should do that. Okay, I'm gonna paint right into the barn. Okay, starting to fill out. All right, I think I'm almost there. Now in the original painting, it looks a little bit bigger because we're going off the side of our canvas, so we're not going behind our barn so much. Okay, that feels pretty good. Okay, so then you can kind of take a little step back and look at all of your trees, see if you like them, see what you can do to even them out. Okay. All right, now we're gonna add in all the little grassy textures that are across the bottom. All right, and this part I think is really fun to do. You want your detail brush again, and you do want a very light hand when you do this, okay? So I'm gonna start over here, and I'm gonna give in some little grassy texture, okay? So I'm gonna be very wispy and quick, okay? See, I'm just pulling up some grassy marks. And instead of going straight up, I'm going straight up, and then I'm hatching over a little bit. It's really important to do this with fresh paint because you want nice crisp lines for at least some of this, okay? So I just wanted that grassy area really kind of on this side of my canvas near the windmill. I'm gonna start to get kind of bushy and thick as I get closer to these areas, okay? And the way I do that is I have to be really hard on my brush. So I'm gonna take some of the paint off of my brush by dabbing it on my paper towel. And I'm gonna come back and see how much I have. And I'm just gonna start kind of pressing. Now I'm gonna go to the side here so you can see I am just pressing my brush in and pulling it away like so. Okay, kind of like a stamp, right? And as a result, I'm getting this more kind of airy, kind of textury kind of feel. Okay, so if you have a lot of paint on your brush, it's gonna be very thick like I just did. Okay, so you don't want a ton of paint. You want it to be kind of scratchy. And you also want to be turning your brush, kind of like when we were doing the leaves over here, because you want a different texture every time you put your brush down. You don't want to be stamping kind of the same thing over and over, if that makes sense, okay? All right, and now you can travel up and down and up and down and up and down as much as you want to make this texture happen. Okay, maybe there's like a bush kind of growing off on the side here next to this barn and a little something here and whatever, okay? Okay, so I went across there and now I'm gonna go right on over here. I don't have much to go. I have too much paint on my brush, so I'm just kind of wiping it off on my already black part, and I'm just gonna start kind of stamping it in. Kind of scratch a little. There's my smudge marks from earlier. Okay, stamp it in there. Okay. And there you have it. I'm gonna drop my brush in the water, take a look, make sure it's everything I want. Okay. So here is tonight's painting, and here is our original painting. My barn's a bit bigger in tonight's painting. I think everything's a little bit bigger in tonight's painting, but I like that. My sun is a little bit more predominant in this painting, so I might go in and brighten this guy up a little bit now that I'm not working with wet paint. It's really good to get some perspective from your painting. So get some space, get away from it, and look at it from across the room. You'll see things that you didn't know you loved and some things that you just want to change. Okay, like I just saw that sun. So I'm going to take a look and I'm just going to brighten it up a little bit. Okay, there we go. I'm gonna get right up in here. Make sure my line is nice and crisp. Okay, that'll do. There we go, guys. The other thing I did in my previous painting too, now that I'm looking at my sun, I did kind of push it back into the background just a little bit. So I brightened it up, and now I'm just gonna grab my size 3 brush, or you could grab your size 4 flat, whatever, whichever one you want. And I'm gonna take a little bit of my yellow or whatever sunset color I have, and I'm gonna add a little bit of brightness come through here. Just kind of wisp it across. You see how I did that? So it kind of looks like a little cloud. It's just going right across the front. Okay, now it's done. So here's tonight's painting, and here is the original painting. Okay, so you can see the difference. Same artist, different night, different mood. All right. So if you have any questions or if you have any areas that have been giving you trouble, then feel free to send me a message on Messenger or through on the post of this painting, whatever you need to do. I'm happy to answer questions. And once you've done this painting, please send me a picture of it. I would love to see how it came out for you and how you changed it. So if you are done, then you can put your brushes in the water, okay? And get all the, kind of dab them in there and get the paint out. But then go take them over to your sink and run nice clean water over them until the water runs clear, until you get all of the paint out of the brushes. Don't leave them in your cup overnight. What will happen is, especially on these detail brushes, the bristles will bend and they'll stay stuck like that forever. Not forever, but they are really hard to bring back to life again. So please wash your brushes out and then just lay them on your paper towel to dry overnight, and then you can return them back to the shop whenever you get a chance, or if they're your own, just store them the way you would normally store them. You probably have extra leftover paint from your tubs. I hope you do. That's great. You can do another painting. You probably have enough paint in here to do at least 2 paintings. So you can try this painting again and change things up. You can change your sunset colors, your gradient, make it a different part of the day. You can do different trees or a different barn, whatever you want to do. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to painting with you again. Good night.